All right, so as we go ahead and draw out the distance, speed, and time, Jonathan, you can go and get it. Let's get it. This DST triangle looks like this. The reason why it's DST is distance, speed, and time. So your distance goes in the top part of the triangle. Speed and time go here in the bottom. Now listen, I know that somebody eventually is going to figure out that speed and time can be flip-flopped. Please leave it like it is and just draw the DST triangle every time. Typically when I'm drawing the DST triangle and I'm about to solve an equation, it's going to look, I draw it a little bit different. I don't write out the words, I just write DST. But that's what the distance, speed, and time triangle is going to look like. DST triangle. All right. If I look here at Nearpod, it says to me, Mrs. Klein drove 100 miles in 2 hours. How fast was she driving? So if I come back here and I put this in, I'm going to put that question at the top here so folks can follow along. I hate when it does that. Text. All right, that'll work, whatever. Maybe not. All right, so you have a question that talks about distance, speed, and time. Sophia, what's the first thing I should draw on my paper? The DST triangle. You are correct. Sydney, what goes at the top of my triangle? Distance, then speed, then time. Now, all I have to do in order to get this correct is not have to do all the pre-algebra stuff is fill in the correct stuff. Where should 100 miles go? Is that distance, speed, or time, Aaliyah? It goes in distance. Then I have 2 hours. Is that a speed or a time, Blaine? All right. Now, if I kind of cover up speed with my hand, I know you can't see that on the video at home, but if you cover up speed, look at what I have inside of the triangle. I have 100 over 2. Now, what do you do when you have a number over another number? That's exactly what the division symbol means, right? A number over a number. That's why the division symbol looks like it looks like. Those dots stand for the numbers. And you read this as 100 divided by 2. So 100 divided by 2. Now, I know that most of us can do this one in our head. This one's not very difficult. What is 100 divided by 2, Connor? So this person was going 50 miles, I know it's miles, per hour. 50 miles per hour. So far, so good, right? You're like, wait a minute, Mr. Boyens, are they all this easy? No. Of course, we start off with them being a little bit easier, but it does tend to get a little more difficult the further along that we go. So far, so good, though? All right. I'm going to come back into here. I'm going to change the question up a little bit. Example 2 is, Miss Levy's headed to the beach. That's her favorite place. It's 360 miles to the beach, and she will drive 60 miles an hour the entire way. How long will it take her to get there? All right. Now, Ava, before I even get started, there's something I should be drawing on my paper. What should I be drawing? The DST triangle. That's very important that you put everything in the right place. Distance here, speed, and time here. Miss Levy's headed to the beach. It's her favorite place. It is 360 miles. Ava J, where does that go? Distance, speed, or time? 360 miles. It is a distance. She will drive 60 miles per hour. Now, that is a speed. Now again, if you kind of cover up the T, what do you see inside of the triangle? I see 360 over 60. And don't forget, that means we are dividing. 360 divided by 60 is, it is 6. 6 hours. It took her 6 hours to get there. She must not have been driving to Myrtle Beach. She must have been going to like the Outer Banks or something. That's a little longer than it takes us to get to Myrtle. Yeah, that's so far so good. Any stress? Not yet. All right, Joanna, Mrs. Davis is going 75 miles an hour. She did it for 3 hours until she finally got a ticket. How far had she driven before she got her ticket? Joanna, what should I draw on my paper before I can start to solve this? The DST triangle. DST. Joanna, 75 miles per hour. Is that a distance? Is that a speed? Or is that a time? It is a speed. She does this for 3 hours. Is that a distance or a time? It's a time. Does this problem look a little different than the other two problems? Do I have anything over something else? When I cover up the top of the triangle, is 75 over 3 or is 3 over 75? Or are they beside each other? Okay. Now, I promise you that 25 is one of the answers on there because 75 divided by 3 is 25. That is not the right answer. When they are beside each other, you do not divide. You do the opposite. You multiply. So here's the reason why I need you to think about this. Let's say we actually put 25 up here. I'm going to write it in red because it's wrong. Does it make sense, Claire, that you drove 75 miles an hour and you did that for 3 hours but only went 25 miles? No, because you're going 75 miles every hour that you've driven. So it can't be 25. Like, stop and think, how realistic does this answer seem? This is not the right answer. However, if I multiply 75 times 3, I get 225, which actually does make sense. So if the numbers are over top of each other, you divide. If they're beside each other, kiddos, if you can remember that, the rest of it is plugging it into the calculator correctly. That's it. I know you're thinking, oh, this is going to be so easy. Like, I can't wait to solve all these on my own. It does get a little more difficult as we move along. But so far, DST triangle, super hard? Not at all. All right, so let's take a look at this really quickly. This will be in the video if people are going to go back and take notes for those folks that are at home. I think it's easier, Ellie. I'm not going to memorize this because all I do is if the numbers are over top of each other, I divide. If they are beside each other, then I multiply. And then I just put the numbers into the calculator to make sure, Knox, that I'm doing those correctly. That's all that I'm doing. If you need this, it's there on the anchor chart. We're going to keep that there just to kind of help people throughout things. But I'll be honest with you, the more practice you do with these, the better off you are going to be. So again, I'm going to skip past that part. We just did that. 225. Now, you have 3 questions to answer. Number 1, Mr. Bullens drove to the mountains to search for Bigfoot. The trip was 135 miles away. He drove 45 miles an hour. How long did it take him to get there? Then I have Mrs. Klein is trying out for the Gryffindor Quidditch team. During her tryout, she flew 52 miles from Hagrid's hut to Godric's Hollow in 4 hours. How fast was she flying? And then last but not least, Miss Levy's having dinner with Mrs. Kraft. Mr. Kraft picked her up in his boat and let Mr. Levy ride on the tube back to his house. Mr. Kraft drove 90 miles across the lake going 45 miles an hour. I'll be honest with you, it's probably backwards because anytime he gets us on the tube, he probably goes 90 miles an hour and tries to kill us in the lake. But how long did it take him to get to Mr. Kraft's for dinner? So 3 questions, all of them you can solve using the DST triangle, and we will go over those in just a minute. All right, Jace, before I can solve this, what should I draw on my piece of paper? The DST triangle. A 135 miles. Is that a distance, a speed, or a time, sir? Distance. 45 miles an hour. That's a speed. Now listen, if you look inside the triangle, you've got to cover up the T. I see 135 over 45. What does that mean that I should be doing? What is the division? Blaine. Not the answer. What's the division I should write? How do I read that? 135 divided by 45. And Sydney, when you did that on the calculator, what'd you get? Does 3 hours sound like a reasonable answer? For how long? Does 6,075 miles sound like a time? No. Now, you didn't get 2.5. It's possible they might put it in minutes. I've seen them do that. It's annoying when they do that, but it's possible. Any questions on this first one? Mrs. Klein's trying out for the Gryffindor Quidditch team. During her tryout, she flew 52 miles from Hagrid's hut to Godric's Hollow in 4 hours. How fast was she flying? What should I draw, Knox? The DST triangle. "52 miles, sir. Is that a distance, a speed, or a time?" 4 hours. I look inside of the triangle. I see 52 over 4. How do I read that, Knox? I read it as 52 divided by 4. Some of you did that in your head. Some of you did it on paper. Some of you did it with your calculator. What did you get, sir, when it said how fast was she flying? I know I can get rid of this, right? I mean, is that the answer? 12.5 miles? That's not even a speed. It's got to be one of these other 3. What did you get when you said 52 divided by 4? I have a bad feeling Mrs. Klein is not going to make the Gryffindor team flying 13 miles an hour on her broom, because that is very slow. Paisley, I'm about to solve this question. What's the first thing I should draw? The DST triangle. Make sure you put the letters where they're supposed to go. D, S, and T. Mrs. Levy's having dinner. He picked her up. Mr. Kraft drove 90 miles. Distance, speed, or time? 45 miles an hour. I look inside the triangle. I see 90 divided by 45. What did you get when you put that into the calculator? I agree with that. So far, so good. I'm about to the end of this, so it's time for them to smash the like button and subscribe. Click the bell for notifications.